Well, Dana Lewis joins me live now from London. He's a journalist and podcaster. Dana, welcome to the programme. You'll have seen much of the diplomatic language and, of course, those drills taking place in Belarus. France describing them as a violent gesture. Psychological pressure is what Ukraine has said. The UK says the biggest security crisis that Europe is facing. Russia, of course, say those drills are merely scheduled exercises. What's your take on all of this? Does it feel like some form of Russian incursion seems now inevitable?
Well, I don't think we'll, Aaron, call it an incursion when it happens. I think that it will be a invasion, and a very violent one and a very large one. You're seeing the Russian Navy in the Sea of Azov and in the Black Sea step up their exercises there. You have these exercises taking place with the Russians and in Belarus, with the Belarus armed forces there, and the numbers increasing on the eastern side. I mean, Russia's like a big boa constrictor right now, strangling its way around Ukraine, and time is running short. I mean, this is why you're seeing this flurry of diplomatic activity. And look, Liz Truss, the British Foreign Secretary, went to Moscow today and met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. And I think it was humiliating for her, because the Russians are not admitting that they're planning any invasion. He said, do you recognize Russia's sovereignty over Rostov and the Voronezh regions? They are in Russia. They are not in Ukraine. And she responded, we'll never recognize Russian sovereignty over the regions. And the British ambassador on her arm had to say, that's in Russia, Secretary Truss. So that's being reported by the Russian media tonight. Those diplomatic talks went nowhere today with Britain. But look, here's a couple of things to watch out for. President Biden will be speaking with European leaders on Friday. What he says is extremely important. And a lot of this lies with the Germans. The German chancellor will go to Moscow next week for his first meeting with President Putin. They hold the key to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. It's very important where the Germans line up on this. And so far, they're standing shoulder to shoulder with the Europeans.
What do you think it's going to take for Vladimir Putin to say, OK, we can pull the troops back? Is nothing less than a concrete guarantee that Ukraine won't become part of NATO all he will accept, which he's unlikely to get? Or would he perhaps accept something else?
I don't think anybody can get in President Putin's head right now. He's been largely isolated from a larger circle that used to surround him. He's now surrounded by a very right-wing, hardcore inner circle. And what does he want out of this? Does he really expect NATO to go back to 1997 levels? In Europe, of course not. And that's not going to happen. Is he hoping for some kind of Finlandization, neutrality in Ukraine? That may have been dangled by French President Macron, but the rest of Europe doesn't support that, and Ukraine doesn't support it. So it seems like there are 10 days of these military exercises in Belarus. They coincide with the end of the Olympics. Russia probably wouldn't want to start military action while the Olympics are underway, and probably have an agreement with President Xi to that effect. But in 10 days' time, we may be seeing Russian troops moving into Ukraine.
And look, on a wider point, is Ukraine and their efforts to become part of NATO, or indeed NATO expansion in that part of the world, such an existential threat to Russia? And do you think the West perhaps underestimate how much that matters to Russia, and also underestimate Russia's willingness to take military action to prevent it?
Well, Aaron, we can write a book, and people have written books on NATO expansion that took place after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Russia watched a lot of it go by, and then now suddenly they've dug in. They would argue that they've been speaking about it for years, but they've dug in over Ukraine and Georgia. And they are saying that this has to be rolled back. And President Putin is probably looking at some kind of legacy issue. He's close to 70 years old. And I think he's looking at geopolitics without understanding, and maybe not getting good advice on the losses that Russian troops may take if they cross that border into Ukraine in big numbers, because the Ukrainians can fight. And then what's he going to do in there? Maybe a land bridge connecting the Crimea to eastern Ukraine, and then some kind of annexation. But the Russian economy will be crushed by these sanctions if they're really going to be as tough as President Biden and the U.S. administration and Europe are saying they will be.
There's a book in it somewhere, Dana. Perhaps you're writing one as we speak. Look, thank you very much indeed for your time. Always great to have you on.